Today's session, Enso Connect and Rentals, interactive discussion, just talking about the evolving landscape of guest communication in vacation rentals, where we'll explore where AI automation makes sense, where human interaction is essential, and how do you blend both of these approaches for that optimal guest experience, and of course, staff efficiency as well. We'll talk about the current state of AI in guest communication. Where is it being used? Some of the common misconceptions, some real world examples of AI handling baseline of guest questions. Then we'll talk about finding that right balance between AI and human touch, where to automate the routine questions versus where humans matter, emergencies, different types of complex requests. And so this concept of pleasantly invisible, which I had an awesome chat about that with Larry. And then we'll talk about more of the operational implementation as well, some bonuses at the end of this conversation. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining the call. My name is Francois. I'm one of the co-founders of Enso Connect, and we've got Larry here, founder and CEO of Rentalz. Larry, do you want to do a quick intro on yourself and the product you've built?
Sure. Great. I've been in the vacation rental business for 23 years, most of Francois's life. And I've seen things transition over the years, and companies like Enso Connect emerge with new solutions. We leveraged running vacation rental companies to develop a suite of technology that help you primarily grow, but we saw an opportunity to help with guest communication by phone. We recognize there are several people, with Enso Connect being the leader in a lot of guest communication. We provide a telephony solution because I actually have a background in telephony, and we see a great way of melding. But we have a complete solution, including the number one owner acquisition solution, which is OwnerPoint. But we have a solution called AnswerPoint, which dovetails beautifully with Enso Connect and guest communication.
I love it. You guys have quite a few solutions. You mind just briefly talking about each of them?
Sure. So we have two pillars of our business. One is the rentals.com booking platform. So it is a booking platform that is an alternative to Airbnb and the OTAs. It's a hybrid between Book Direct and the OTAs. And we have that suite of services. But our Z Point suite of growth solutions includes OwnerPoint, which is the number one owner acquisition solution in the industry. There really isn't anyone else that offers anything close to the services we have. But we leverage data and your data to grow your business. And a big part of grow your business is communication. So we have solutions for that as well. And I think you may have been the first company that had AI in the industry, or one of the very first. We were right after that. We launched a Genie AI solution 3 years ago. So we've wrapped AI into all of our products, and we brand that under Genie. So that's what we do.
A bit about Enso Connect. If you're not a user today, Enso Connect, we're a guest experience platform for vacation rental operators. Really simple mission: digitize and monetize your guest experience. We operate with just north of 60,000 listings, different types of integrations from different property management softwares, direct OTAs, and so on. And really a main goal for me is automate and make money. Today, we're going to be focused a bit more on the time aspect of managing those vacation rentals, specifically around guest communications. Challenge that I've seen over and over. So the efficiency pressure is the more properties, the more guests, more messages. You need AI to handle some of this volume, or you end up hiring more people. And that's not always the most efficient way to grow. But then there's also that counterbalance, which is the hospitality fear. If I automate everything, then have I really brought in this hospitality business to light, or am I just a real estate shop? And I think that really depends on how you want to run your business, but also understanding what AI can do today, what it could do tomorrow, and what you should do with humans today versus what you could do with humans tomorrow. I'll start off with a question here, and this is open-ended. We have this debate of efficiency versus hospitality. Where do you land, and what do you see? What's your take here in terms of AI versus human at a high level?
Well, I'd add a third branch to this, which is all your staff. So there's the
Yeah.
efficiency pressure. And yes, that's saving money, and there's hospitality. But don't forget, one of your constituencies that your solutions work on is making sure your staff can operate effectively and not deal with things in the middle of the night, because there's wear and tear and fatigue. Your staff not who say, why am I answering this checkout request at 8 o'clock at night when a guest is calling me or texting me? Can I check out early, when that can be solved? That's the third one. So it's a balance between all three, and also the more urgent ones. The urgent issues should be escalated to people with a high touch, more benign things, and then having the continuum to know what is really critical and what is less critical, and then moving it up and down the slider to who should be handling things.
100%. I feel like a part of that is also process writing for a lot of operators, where process is more of a tribal knowledge within the team, but it's not something that's institutionalized. And so it becomes harder to think how you're going to delegate both to the sort of agentic layer of your business or the human aspect of your business. One of the main misconceptions I find with short-term rentals and AI, there's a few different ones. I had a really interesting call a couple weeks ago with a property manager, and it's the first time I've ever gotten this response. I always ask a question at the end of a sales call on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0, don't ever call me back again, and 10, sign me up right now. Where do you land? Now, most people who aren't interested, they say 5 because they don't really want to offend you, but at the same time, they're not fully convinced. Most people who are actually convinced say 7 or 8. This guy said 0. So now I'm thinking to myself, I have 10 minutes left on the call. I've got 10 minutes to make sure he's not a 0, so I don't have to never call him again, and try to understand, why is he against AI? What are the reasons? And so what I want to talk about here is a bit of the misconceptions, because we managed to get him to a 10 eventually, but it did take a bit of trying here.
That'll be
And I
interesting
think
how you got a guy from a 0 to a 10. I'm all ears.
it took some time. It took a couple weeks, I'll tell you that much. But the first part I would say is the sort of buzzword without substance. I like to say that every company that says that they're an AI company today, it's like every company 10, 15 years ago who were saying they're cloud-based companies today. You don't care anymore. If a company came up to you and said, we are the cloud-based software solution for ABCD, you'd be like, I sure hope you're in the cloud, because if I have to install a server rack to get any sort of software, it's not going to make sense. It's the same thing with AI. We're using it internally, externally, for our teams, for our customers. It is going to be banal, I would say, in a few years, where every company will be an AI company. The second misconception I see, and by the way, Larry, if you have any comments on that, feel free to chime in.
It's like telling people you use whatever software code you're using, whatever base, wherever you're in AWS. It doesn't make a difference. It's all part of the solution. Our tech
That's
stack
right.
evolves to whatever the solutions are. Saying you answering phone calls 24/7. Of course, you answer phone calls 24/7. What else would you do? That's
Yeah.
what you do.
Yeah, 100%. The second misconception that I see is the sort of flip the switch expectation. So flip a switch, AI magically learns and AI magically does work for you. And while I do agree that we are headed towards that, one of the biggest misconceptions with this is the AI is only as good as you train it. And the AI is only as good as you train your team, just like your team is only as good as you train them. So any feedback on that one, Larry?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that training and also access to data. So
Yeah.
we have implemented AI solutions across our software suite, and we have the benefit of having either guest data or owner data. If you start with your knowledge base from which you train and prompt your solutions is the data. If you have the data, for example, I happen to know this at Enso Connect, you have every bit of the reservation information on every single reservation. It's at your AI model's base. You have everything about that property in your system. You're not guessing how to solve a lockout at 123 Elm Street in Myrtle Beach. You know what it is. You're not
Yeah.
guessing. So it's the data, how you train it, and of course, how you have configured your AI systems.
100%. And access to that full experience as well, because like you pointed out, when you have that data, you know how to triage certain situations. And I like to give one very basic example, which is the process from guest verification to check-in and how an AI can handle that. So if you don't own that sort of process of guest verification and so on, and a guest does not complete, I don't know, the HOA form or the safety deposit or any of these steps, and you haven't informed the AI that these are part of the steps that are required in order to share check-in instructions. It's 4 p.m. It's check-in day. Guest is asking, can I get my check-in instructions? AI doesn't know that the HOA agreement hasn't been completed. There you go. Here's the access information. You've now broken your systems, broken your process. So having access to that data, knowing where the guest is in their journey, owning that full guest journey allows you to move more towards that flip a switch expectation, but you still need the processes before you can, flip a switch, if you will.
So actually, Fred, we just
Yeah.
implemented a new solution that does something. I won't go into the detail of our product. We do it algorithmically and through AI. There are certain things that are actually programmably set as a rule with
Yeah.
zero interpretation by AI. So, for example, in your scenario with an HOA, HOA rules. You're probably taking the rules. Is the HOA
Form completed.
signed?
Yeah.
And there is no interpretation by your AI model. It is algorithmically set that if that's not done, you do it. So you're not, so it's actually calculated and algorithmically determined. Your AI isn't interpreting. I'm not sure if it happened. You've set a
Yeah.
rule. So it's the blend
100%.
of algorithmic. So it's, we actually go algorithmically and AI blend together. And I think people trust that more if they know there are programmatic rules that do things, and then AI takes it from there.
100%. It's a workflow. It's as simple as that. It's if this, then that. And then
Yes,
let the
exactly.
AI roll with whatever decision is available based on those systems. The next one I see is efficiency versus replacement confusion. So this was actually the big 0 to 5, 0 to 10 marker, right? This idea that we would come in and fully replace the staff and do all the work for them. And that is not necessarily the case. Now, we can very comfortably get to 40 to 60% automation ratios with most of the data that you have in your PMS. That does not mean you need to replace your staff, because they're still very helpful for cross-team collaboration, coordinating with cleaners, emergency situations, and also improving the systems overall versus just doing some of the baseline work. So efficiency is the real value behind it. This isn't about just replacing every human. There's certainly certain heads that will be replaced to a certain extent if it is very workflow based work, but that's how
Or
technology evolves.
allows you, or Francois, it allows you to grow without adding staff. That's
100%.
the other way to play. So if you're currently managing 20 properties and you have X number of people, you could get to 30 properties with the same number of people.
100%. 100%. I couldn't agree more with that. It's what scale is all about versus growth. The next one I see is data overload without actual actionable insights. So one of the best things about AI is it allows you to assess and transcribe a lot of information and slice it in so many different ways. But that doesn't mean it can do the job for you. You still need to actually interpret most of that information, and it can absolutely make you more efficient in interpreting that information, but there's still a decision to be made. And the last bit I would say is lack of structured processes. This is probably the biggest one that I see in the space. Most property managers have some rules. They have a few documents, maybe a master spreadsheet somewhere that you have to update from time to time, but there's no real structure. Everyone's kind of just knows, make sure to get some 5-star reviews, make sure guests are happy, make sure owners are happy. How you do it, we'll figure it out along the way. If you feel like you are in that realm today, where you don't have a very clearly written out, defined process, but you still feel like you have a clearly defined process because it's sitting within your team's heads and ways of doing things, that is where it becomes a bit harder to set up an AI system, because you will be forced to find a way to train that AI in a way that you would train a human for them to understand what needs to be done. So just a little heads up there. If you haven't started writing up documents like SOPs, I highly recommend you do it, regardless of if you decide to use an AI solution or not. It is good for your team. It is good for your business. And of course, it is good if you're thinking about scaling.
That's why people could use AI with industry to use AI to build their own processes as well. Maybe you're going, maybe that's
100%.
your next slide.
100%. No, it wasn't exactly the next slide, but I couldn't agree more. That is absolutely, this is one of the things that we're headed towards. We've now standardized all of these guest conversations. And part of what the data says, actually, so this is the next slide, is 58% of guest messages can be safely automated with AI without you having to worry that it would send the wrong information or anything like that. And that's because over 50% of those guest messages are predictable and they can be prevented with those proactive tools. And I'm not talking about just the basics of check-in questions and check-in or Wi-Fi questions, like even some more complex ones that involve certain nuances. Those absolutely can be automated. And this is where you can free up time for your team. Moving on to that sort of next slide here is the balance for, oh, I'm just getting a call at the same time, for what AI handles well versus where humans are non-negotiable. So maybe, Larry, do you want to touch up on where you think humans are non-negotiable?
Backed up toilets. Okay. I'll lead with that. Every one of you, or a lockout. When people, first of all, in general, people should be communicated with the way they like to be communicated with. So if you're using Enso Connect and they're communicating through Enso Connect through the interface, and they don't know it's just texting. That's what it feels like to them. They're just texting. So when they're
Emails, Airbnb, you
texting,
name it. Yeah.
if they're communicating with you and you're using Enso Connect and they're getting solutions, that's probably fine. If they say, call me, you call them. If they pick up the phone and call you, the worst is we don't take direct phone calls. Text us to this number. That is the worst experience possible. When people call, So if they text you, communicate by text. If they email you, communicate by email. If you're using WhatsApp, communicate with WhatsApp. If they're using the Airbnb or VRBO app, you communicate with how they initiated the conversation. But if they phone you, talk to them. A human being, this is overall strong opinion with 40 years of telephony experience. Wow, I don't think anyone has 40 years in this business, but 40 years of telephony experience. If people call you, when anyone calls a company, a human being should answer the call. Now, that doesn't mean they're calling you directly. You can go to your voicemail. But if someone is calling your company by phone, a human being needs to answer the phone call. And 24/7, they should answer it. And they should address it and escalate it appropriately, because that is what's appropriate. Now, if they're calling at midnight about, hey, can I get a late checkout? That's where you capture a message. But if they're calling you saying the toilet is overflowing, they shouldn't get an automated message saying, we don't do it, please text us. That's the worst.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I'm going to challenge you on this. Don't you think AI can answer the phone for you?
No, not when, because at this point, this is old school. Initially, on a prompting, you could say, is this something that needs immediate attention? And if or is it emergency? My feeling is, if it's a guest calling, they're spending thousands of dollars on accommodations. The average rental in this industry is a couple $1,000s. It's a high touch experience. Let a human being do it, because they are calling and they want to speak to a person. And
Yeah.
that is and the people who answer the phone should have the answers. I'm okay with some pre-screening, using pre-screening, saying, it's after hours. If this is a big wait to the next morning, please press 1, and then you can treat it one way. But I think if they're calling, they expect to do, and always give them the option. If you use A up front, if you want to speak to a human being, always give them the option to do it.
So that I agree.
Don't give them
I
the
agree with
option.
that.
And there is probably some things I will never have an American Express black card. I've heard of them. I've never seen one. But my understanding is, if you have an American Express black card, they have banks of people that you call, they answer on the first ring. Now, people in the United States or your country of origin, they will answer right away. But those are people who are spending. I don't believe you need to go to that level of guest service, but I do believe if they call you, let a human being speak to them so you can solve the issue. And also, if it's a homeowner calling you, whether it's one of your existing homeowners or a prospective homeowner or a real estate agent calling you with whom you have a relationship, answer the call. The value of the call, and again, going back to guests, the value of the fact that you answered the call sets you apart from people who don't want to have the high touch experience. And I'm only suggesting, when they call, I'm not saying through interaction, through texting and email. If that's how they do it, use the AI as much as possible. But I'm going to stick with, as much as possible, let a human being answer the call.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk about this concept of the invisible service. You brought this up on our prep call a week ago or whatever. You
Yeah.
mind sharing a bit more what this pleasantly invisible service model means?
Sure. And Francois, you're from France, and you probably found this interesting. And I'm from Canada
Yeah.
originally, moved to the United States. And people talk about a good service at a restaurant. And it is arguable the best service you get at a restaurant is when you leave, you don't remember who the wait person was. You remember they were pleasant, they showed up appropriately on time, they were there, and everything was right. They weren't in your face. If you asked them what the special was, they knew what the special was. They didn't sit there and find out where you're visiting from and how long you're there, what are you enjoying. They're reading the audience, and they're just delivering services invisibly well. So when people go on vacation, they rent a home, they don't really care about your company. They care about getting there, getting in, staying in the home, and they don't need to be over the top. If you leave them a guest, if you branded their presence in house, that's fantastic, but you don't need to be in their face. Just respond to how they reach out to you, and just deliver the service as invisibly as possible.
Yeah. I love the expression because it's the polar opposite in France, right? So the service in France is they're nowhere to be found. You're trying to call them, and you feel like you're bothering them when they show up to the table because they're like, "Yes, what do you want?" You're like, I don't know, maybe I could order now. And when I moved to North America, I found exactly what you said, like the complete opposite. Like suddenly the waitress is trying to become my best friend. And I'm like, what's going on here? I'm trying to have a conversation with someone else. Who are you? Do you want a seat? You want to sit down with us? What's
Yeah.
going on? And it could feel a bit too much. So finding that balance, and I think what you mentioned is, yeah, pleasantly invisible service model is how you build it. So that balance between touchless, but with human contact as well. I'm just going to point out a quick thing, Larry. We've got Alexandra here who has over 61 years of experience in this business. So I think she
Wow.
beats you by
Okay.
20
Really?
years over here in vacation
Okay.
rentals. I'm just going to point that out there. But
Alexandra, from which company? From which company?
I'm not sure. Alexandra, if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit more about your company in the chat, that'd be awesome. But yeah, so one of the inhabit. Okay, fair enough.
Oh,
Touche.
I know Alexandra. Hello, Alexandra. We love you. Yes, she does that work.
Fair enough. So one of the aspects here as well is the sort of escalation path to a human. When is it actually requested? When is it necessary for us to move things over to humans? This is the one where I find that the lines get blurred. The missing piece for most operators that they overlook is 54% of consumers expect a human fallback when AI isn't answering their query. So this is a Twilio State of Customer Engagement report from 2025. I would personally say 100% of people expect
That
to get a
surprises me.
fallback to a human.
Why is it only 54%? That's amazing. I would expect 100 also.
I would also expect 100. My assessment is that the expectation that you have to get to a human will take longer versus trying to figure it out on your
Wow.
own. And as the tools get better and easier, it might be easier and faster to just look it up on your own. That said, it's interesting to see how there is an escalation path that is needed. So what is that escalation path? Where do you see it being the most used? Where should it be applied?
At any point they ask for a human, you don't ask them twice. I'm actually okay with one other prompt after that. If they ask for a human, the only other question you should ask after that is, what is this about? So at least you know how to direct it, and then direct it. I want to ask them another question. Is it the toilet or the refrigerator? That just pisses people off. Just
Yeah.
let them do it. It's so you can know whether or not it's a maintenance issue or if it's a service issue or something like that.
And what are the top types of issues on phone calls?
Uh,
Or
uh,
issues, or even
okay.
non-issues? Maybe it's
Well,
just common
well,
requests.
for accessing the property, which is probably
Okay.
the number one thing. No matter how many times people either send emails from their own PMS directly through Enso Connect or any of the other solutions that are out there that sends them guest arrival information, that seems to be the number one thing. People can't find it. Or it was sent to one party member to their work address instead of their personal one. They don't have it. That's the number one issue that we see more than anything else, because that is if you think about the experience of a reservation, there used okay, before the date of the internet, the days of the internet, when you rented a home, a vacation, and the vacation rental industry has been around for many decades, as Alexandra can attest to. That used to be you'd have catalogs and hear about a place, and you would get instructions mailed to you or faxed to you, and you would arrive at a home, and it would be a great mystery. That has long gone away because people are seeing detailed pictures and Matterports and full descriptions. So the surprising of the home, but there's always the little bit of the angst of
Mm.
finding the house and getting in the house. That is the single biggest friction point, because there typically aren't that many maintenance issues, but finding and getting in the house or parking or little things like accessing the house is number one issue. And people they just want to get in. They've traveled a long way. They want to get into the house.
Yeah, it's the first impression, getting a guest to check in. And I think it's also the expectation setting. If you're going to pay the same price as a hotel, but without the concierge aspect, you expect somehow a person you can speak with or a concierge level system in place that you can handle. Now, this is one of those things that we do handle quite a bit at Enso, is to reduce
Yeah.
the amount of questions people have to begin with before even setting up AI to answer the rest, and to streamline, no pun intended here, Alexandra, the sort of access component of guests as well, right? So the whole check-in flow, making sure it's step by step, picture by picture, trying to make it as I hate to say it, idiot proof. Maybe it's just the word guest proof, because guests will always have issues with the information you send them. But having that backup piece with a phone call is absolutely important. When the escalation happens to that phone call, Larry, what do you typically see? Is it happy guests, unhappy guests? It's just more of a convenience kind of thing. And what does a 24/7 service look like for a vacation rental manager?
So one of the things with whether a property manager has their own guest app already built into their PMS, or they're using Enso Connect, the guest, if they have access to, or it's not a guest app, but the guest mobile link, typically you should not have
Yeah.
an app. Thank you. You should not have an app. You should never require a guest to
Someone to
download an app
download. Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was so 2009 or whatever. So if they have the link to the property, that should have everything in there that is well defined. And you guys are probably one of the leaders in the industry for providing that data. What we do with companies that we have many companies that are on Enso Connect with our answer point service, if they call in, they answer the phone. Thank you for calling at Springfield Vacation Rentals. My name is Pat. How may I help you? Because we have the caller ID of the homeowner and we have the reservation information, it pops the screen and we have that unique reservation URL, the Enso Connect URL. We can actually have our agents look it up, look at exactly what they would see, and then send it to them exactly. Because it's not that they don't know how to use that link, they just can't find it. They don't have it in their inbox. It's buried in their either email inbox or their text inbox, and they don't know where it is. So that has all the information in there. So you've provided with the guest link, the unique URL for each reservation. You know who's staying there, where they are. You have all the information. Our agents have access to the exact same information. Even if it was sent to the husband or the wife has it, they can look at the screen and say, yes, the lockbox is to the left of the door underneath the blue sign. Oh, yeah, I found that now. So we have access to that. So it's basically make sure you provide all the information from your PMS into whatever system you need. And then everyone's looking at the same information. And if for some reason the lockbox key is missing, there's nothing. That's where you escalate it to the
Yeah.
emergency people after hour. And AI can't, I suppose you probably do that, but we do. If they call and they say there is no key in the lockbox, guess what? That's where you reach after hours human beings at 10 o'clock at night. But
Yeah,
AI
that makes sense.
handles it.
Now, I'm going to pry into this a bit more, Larry, and
Sure.
I know I'm going fully off script here. You know the
Mine's fine.
company 11 Labs, right? You heard of it?
No, I haven't. No, tell me about it.
No?
No.
Okay, so 11 Labs is like basically voice AI. The idea is transcribe different types of voices into with AI and make it sound really human. It's actually quite impressive. And to give you an idea, my girlfriend works in an architecture firm. They didn't get their bonuses, I think last year or something like that. And the reason they didn't get their bonuses was because someone made a spam call or a scam call to the CFO to tell them that they needed to wire, or to one of the bankers, I don't exactly know, as the CFO to wire 30 million bucks. Company lost $30 million. It sounded like the CFO. It was the CFO. It should have been. It was Larry, man. I swear it was Larry on the phone call. Like, it just
Yep.
sounded just like the right person. So we are seeing technology evolve towards voice. Where do you see AI taking maybe a piece of voice and that human interaction? And do you think it'll ever replace it?
I think I think it's coming because if you take all of the data that you have on a reservation and for the company and have
Yeah.
that and put it into AI, they could handle much of that. I'm not saying you couldn't do it,
Yeah.
but when people are spending a couple $1,000s on accommodations, the cost of not having a human, and I would recommend always in North America, I highly discourage people having call centers unless it's your own people trained. Now there are a lot of
Yeah.
companies on this call that have their own VAs that are in the Philippines that are part of their staff. That's a different story, they can handle it. But if you're
Yeah.
using a third party service, have North American based agents talking to them, because these people are spending thousands of dollars on accommodations. You're addressing a key issue. The incremental cost of that is so small that you're better off talking to people. And you never know if the person you're talking to is a prospective homeowner calling you, or if it's or is it one of your existing homeowners. They want to know that they're being heard. And while there are cost savings with going with AI solutions, there's no doubt, and I'm not doubting they could do it well, the
Yeah.
fact that you could have a human being solve the problem is worth it. If you were selling widgets, cheap widgets, different story. But your average transaction is a couple $1,000s, and if it's an owner, it's worth a lot more. I think it's worth spending the money on a human being talking.
I agree. I go back to the initial process building that we talked about originally. And honestly, the results are really impressive. Like when we first started this company, I started Enso probably 4 or 5 years ago. And we were building our own models at the time, trying to analyze sentiment and trying to answer messages and do different things. And it was quite frankly not the right approach because the models simply weren't there. Today, it's become so easy to almost sound like a human. One example I have from that is and not just with voice, I mean with text and so on. So it's finding that balance. And again, this is the whole point of this webinar today. I had a property manager out of France who told me, I'll never use AI because I always want to make sure that the customers know that there's a human on the other side of the line that they can speak with. And then he would answer really quickly to his guests. And one of the guests said, is this AI? And he was so annoyed because he was like, wait a minute, I've been spending all this time answering manually and this person thinks that I was AI. So again, it's about that balance because yes, there's the expectation, but there's also the reality of what you can do with AI where you can create efficiency so you can make your staff, give your staff less headaches effectively. We've seen people turn it on within 24 hours. They automate 20% of guest comms and realize that it's not just automating the guest comms, it's also reducing a bunch of these messages that they have in the first place because every single one of those messages are the same every single time. So there's probably actually a process issue or a guest journey issue. The fact that every single time your guests are asking the same question isn't AI will solve it. It's also thinking, well, how can I improve the experience so I can go back to what we talked about, which is pleasantly invisible. Being that sort of invisible service that knows exactly what the guest wants, when they want it, where they want it, and to create that 5-star journey. Without further ado, we're going to talk about a bit of the do's and don'ts for those who want to build this AI plus human system. I'll let you start, Larry. What do you think are some of the do's and don'ts?
Build your company-wide processes first. Start with that.
Yeah.
Whatever your company processes are, build the whole roadmap for the guest journey that's universal for everyone. If you have 2 different markets, write one for Hilton Head, one for Charleston, or one for Vail, or one for Beaver Creek, but just write a process for each market. And then from there, you do it at the property level as well. So building the exact same format and system that is uniform. It may not be the same for every property, or it may not be the same for every market, but every single step that anyone who's dealing with a guest would have to know on your reservation. And it also has to do with how do you deal with an Airbnb booking versus a VRBO booking versus a book direct booking versus booking.com. Are you cancel just having it all documented and standardized, company level, market level, property level, have it standardized. From that, you're going to tell me that's how you build your AI model, I bet.
100%. That's exactly it. And we're constantly tweaking it to fit those parameters as well. Because another example, so we analyze guest sentiment and throughout a conversation. So think unified inbox, text, email, WhatsApp, Airbnb message, OTAs, and all that feed into the messaging. And then any messages back and forth with the guests, we're going to use AI to analyze the sentiment. We'll also give you a little summary of the conversation.
You glossed over, so I want to make sure everybody hears this.
Yeah, tell me.
You do need to have a unified inbox. So no
Yes.
matter how you do this, so in processes, everything, no matter what the channel is, if there's guest communication, it should all funnel in to one place. Whether or not your PMS has that in unified inbox, whether or not you use a service like Enso Connect, whether you have your own custom CRM, every single point of communication needs to funnel in. Email, phone, voice, WhatsApp. What did I forget? The from each of the apps from the OTAs. Everything has
OTAs,
to
yeah.
go to one place.
Agreed. And that's still a work in progress for everyone because you got different email accounts and different Airbnb accounts, and maybe your PMS supports this but doesn't support that. It's all different everywhere. But what I would say is we looked at analyzing the sentiment of every guest conversation so we could trigger workflows. The idea was simple. If the guest is happy, then we're going to remind them to leave a review. If they're not happy, we're not going to remind them to leave a review. And as we built out the models for responding automatically to guests, we decided, or we opted out of answering any messages from guests that were marked as unhappy. Because we figured if there's a problem, we'd much rather let a human get involved than an AI. And quickly what we realized was it's hard to define when a guest is happy, when again a guest is not happy. Is a guest not happy because they're asking a bunch of questions, or maybe that's just they're unclear? And so we've had to constantly update some of our systems and our processes for when the AI should answer, could answer, and so on. But the rules stay the same. There's a process. When X situation happens, this is how we handle it. These are the guidelines on how we communicate with our guests. I would be very shocked if you are in the customer service industry, which you are being a hospitality professional, if you do not have a guideline, and this is where I'll put in the do, and I'll put in the don't do that, or don't not do it, have a guideline on how you communicate with your guests. Do you greet them by their first name? Do you say hello or hi? Do you say howdy or aloha based on your location, right? All of these things inform your VAs who might not have the same cultural or contextual information that you have, and is the sort of backbone of making AI work in a hospitality business in a way where you're not going to turn it on and turn it off the next day because they made a mistake. So we've taken a very conservative approach in launching Enso AI, our AI modules, by going by category, by creating more of these embedded, what we call SOPs, standard operating procedures, and looking at all of your data to build a template for it. And of course, one of the unique things is being able to redirect any of the phone calls to any line. And so one of the examples here is, of course, Larry's company. If you're using Rentalz, if you're using owner, it's owner answer point. Sorry. If you're using answer point, we can effectively redirect those phone calls directly to answer point, so they get all of that contextual information, the summary of what's happening and so on, directly in answer point as well. So
because you provide a local phone number for each company, right? So
that's
they have a
correct.
number. So if they, as they're texting and communicating through that phone number, if someone picks up, if they, few things with telephony, if they, if you, it is the best, in my opinion, best practice, have one phone number for your entire company. Now, Enso
Yeah.
Connect provides a second one, but I would argue that you get a great vanity number for your company and you brand that number and you do that. And I don't know if you could do this with Enso Connect if you use the same number, but that would be the best way of doing it. So it's a unified communication number for everything. Sometimes people
Yeah.
do get special guest services, one for guests in line, existing owner phone numbers, or prospective owner phone numbers, but start with one number and let people communicate with that phone number, whether it's by SMS or by picking up the phone. And if it's a number that people text you, and if they text you, you should respond through Enso Connect. If they pick up the phone and call, a human being should answer that call, whether it's your staff or our staff, 24/7. Someone should answer that call.
100%. 100%. It's that is the direction we're headed as well. So this is, and what would you say? I guess the last question here on this slide, and I think we're gonna be ending a tad bit short, but right on time for Q&A here. Any don'ts?
Don't not answer phone calls. Is that a yes? Answer phone calls. It's make it easy. Just make it easy for people to communicate with you,
For
and let
sure.
them know that. And also, whenever they communicate by phone, it is smart to send an acknowledgement by email and or text saying we've acknowledged this is the issue, so they feel heard. And it's and
Yeah.
also through your communication with Enso Connect, you have a string of communication, so they know where things stand. And you could do the same thing by phone. Is after a phone call, there should be a follow up to have them feel heard
Yeah.
and what to do if the
100%.
issue isn't resolved.
I love it. So again, that balance between human and AI, the real balance that you have to define in hospitality. I think some guests expect a fully touchless experience and are happy with this. Other guests need more hand-holding, and that's perfectly fine. And it's all about the type of audience that you're targeting, but also having that sort of availability across the board for how people want to travel and stay in your property. So I'm going to open it up now for any questions for Larry, for myself, be it about our platforms, be it about this open-ended topic of human versus AI. And while people are potentially asking any questions here, we will be sending the recording of this webinar at the end of the webinar. So we'll be sending out messages to everyone who's registered here. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined, has stayed throughout the call. I always measure people who attend, the number of people who register, but also the number of people who attend, and of course the number of people who stick around. Because if I'm doing a webinar and there's 50 people in it, and then after 10 minutes I see there's 10, then I got to change the tone here, and everyone
That's
seems to have
never
stuck
happened
around.
with you. Everyone sticks around with you, Francois.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But yeah, any final remarks, Larry? Oh,
Yeah,
we do have
yeah, sure. There is one question.
yeah,
One of the things that Francois and I discussed a couple weeks ago when we were together is we're building an integration. It's not yet done, but it's not going to be difficult for a company who's tech savvy as Enso Connect, where we will be able to offer our telephony solutions, our answer point solutions. So anyone who calls your Enso Connect phone number, we will answer 24/7. We've published a very special, I think it's reduce the monthly fee to an incredibly small amount, and you just, there it is. Thank you, $29 a month, and then we'll just charge you $1.59 per minute. We bill by the half minute, not the full minute. So it's, if someone just calls for 2.5 minutes, you pay for 2.5 minutes, not for 3 minutes. And we will have all of the information that you have in Enso Connect. Our USA based reps will have, and then we can transfer emergency calls to you. So that's a special way to set up these. Yeah. Okay. So Rajat has a
That's
question
awesome.
for you.
Yeah. So does this AI text channel limited to a chatbot or also to external channels such as text messages, WhatsApp, or any other? Yeah, it's a great question. So we offer a messaging solution that allows you to text, email, WhatsApp, Airbnb message, depending on your PMS, Verbo, Booking.com, and all the other channels as well. So think of it as an agentic layer that connects to your existing distribution systems, your Airbnbs of the world and your Streamlines and Guesties and so on of the world. And we effectively automate that interaction with your guests across any of these channels. So yes, WhatsApp and text included as well. And what's the base fee for any number of units on your end?
Oh, that
Larry?
is any number of units, any number of units. So we don't charge per our services. And what we do different than almost any company, we do not charge per units. Our services are based on usage. You could have 1,000 units, doesn't make a difference. You're paying per minute of usage, and you only pay for for the minutes for the calls that are forwarded to us, and that's it. You have 1,000 units, 10 units, doesn't make a difference.
Awesome. On our end, base unit number is 5. If you have 2, it's fine. It's just our pricing model starts at 5 units minimum. We're not operating with Airbnb hosts. We're focused a bit more on property managers, professionals, and so on. So yeah, base number of units is 5. There we go. Of course, no problem, Rajat. Thank you so much. Without further ado, I think we're pretty much right on time. So we mentioned the special offer here from Answer Point. Thank you for the generous share here, Larry. On our end, free AI, simple as that. So it's included in every account. For now, we will eventually have to start billing for it, but for now, we're including it into every account. And then my big call out CTAs is join the Enso Six Figure Club. The Enso Six Figure Club are operators who made over $100,000 on our upsell system. We have dozens of them. Without further ado, we're going to end the webinar here. Larry, I appreciate you making the time. It was awesome
Same
seeing
here.
you
Always great, Francois. Thank you
at
so
the
much.
event there. And yeah, awesome.
See you soon.
Go from there.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Cheers.